Hello again, everyone. My name is David Bastel alongside AREA President Sean Morrison, and this is the Real Estate Edition podcast. This month's episode will feature a panel of experts discussing consumer perceptions of today's real estate market during COVID-19. That panel included AREA CEO Tim Hudak, Nik Nanos, the president of Nanos Research, Burrell team broker and owner Melanie Piche, and Sean, you were part of this panel as well. What was one of your main takeaways from the discussion?
I'd say the main takeaway was that consumer confidence remains high in the real estate sector. I think that's due to the amazing work that the 80,000 realtors across the province of Ontario have done to ensure that they're keeping their clients safe throughout COVID-19.
One of the takeaways I saw from it and listened to it was the appetite to live in suburban and rural areas of Ontario. Is this something that we could see happening in the future?
I think it's too early to predict if it's going to be a long-term trend or not. But at the same point, we are seeing that. I mean, we've all been locked up in our houses throughout COVID-19. We've had a lot of time to sit around, evaluate what's important to us. And we are starting to see that shift outside of the major urban centers.
Without further ado, let's send it over to our moderator, CEO of AREA, Tim Hudak.
You're listening to this month's episode of The Real Estate Edition with host Dave Bastel and AREA President Sean Morrison.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Consumer Perceptions of Today's Real Estate Market. I'm Tim Hudak, CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. I'm honored to be the MC of today's report on our latest AREA data on what's happening with consumers across the province of Ontario. No doubt about it, the COVID-19 impact has been dramatic across all of our lives. The question for us today is, okay, how are real estate perceptions changing in the marketplace? Is there a long-term trend setting in? Are consumers changing their mind? Or do they sort of shrug it off because real estate is something they're thinking about beforehand? A lot of stuff out there in the marketplace, a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation. We're going to give you the facts today of where consumers stand and analyze what it means for you in your business. We're going to talk a bit about our consumers changing their mind after being cooped up in their homes for almost 4 months, about their real estate interests and around their timing. Is it true that people are looking to move to rural or suburban areas and out of cities, or is that nothing more than idle speculation in the short term? When consumers are engaging in the marketplace for open houses and showings, what they need to see from you, the realtor, when it comes to protecting their personal health and safety. And importantly, has the COVID pandemic impacted the timing of when they want to buy or sell a home? And is it different for renters, homeowners, seniors, or whatever part of the province you're in? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I also want to take any questions that you have to direct to our panel as well. So please do use the chat function. We're going to have a presentation first. I've got some general questions about those big topics, but I'd love to hear from you. So anytime, please do go to chat, ask a question, and I'll try to get through as many as possible. So that sound good? Okay, perfect. Well, let me introduce our panel here today. First, the hardest working man in real estate, I'd like to say, Sean Morrison, who is the president of the Ontario Real Estate Association. He has been everywhere, well, virtually, if not in person, during the pandemic, showing very strong leadership of how to approach the COVID-19, how to maintain the highest levels of professionalism, the health and safety. Sean, of course, also broker and manager for Coldwell Banker Momentum Realty. And his goal as president is to make sure that Ontario leads North America when it comes to high professional standards and business opportunities for its members. Melanie Piche, many of you will know as well, the Burrell team owner and broker, has a very popular blog as well, a very strong following in social media. Her goal is to make sure that sellers get top dollar for their home. Melanie joining us to give us her expertise in analyzing the numbers that come from this fella, Nik Nanos. Nik Nanos has been leading Nanos by the numbers for 30 years, despite his very young appearance. You will recognize Nik for not only helping out with us at AREA as a regular partner, but you see him everywhere. Wall Street Journal, The Economist, The Globe and Mail, CTV, Bloomberg News, across the board. Nik has a great familiar with real estate, has been in the field each month for us. You may have seen the data for May. We're now reporting back what we heard through June and into July. All right, so that's our expert panel. They'll walk through questions on the big numbers Nik's going to present. And again, send in through chat your questions for Nik, Melanie, or Sean, and I'll get them on the agenda as well over this next hour. I do also want to welcome a number of members of the media. Major outlets have joined us today, both in the general news as well as real estate. Thank you for your interest in this and getting the numbers firsthand. Okay, at this point, Nick, let's give it to you and walk us through your big findings through June and early July on what's happening in the real estate market.
Super. Thanks, Tim. What I'm going to do is unpack some numbers in terms of the latest survey that we've done for the Ontario Real Estate Association. We did a province-wide survey of 1,000 individuals, but the important thing to remember is that the types of individuals that we surveyed were people that self-reported that they were actively in the real estate market and that they were going to buy or sell in the next 2 months. So, what's interesting is that when we break out, for example, renters compared to homeowners, renters who are active in the real estate market, you can see that renters are more likely to report that they're interested in buying a home because of the pandemic. You see a net positive in terms of that when you trade off those that are less likely to basically engage in that activity. So, the key thing is that when we're thinking of renters, we have to think of renters and the pandemic and there being a greater appetite, not a dampening of appetite in terms of buying and selling because of the pandemic. So that was one of the key findings that we saw in the study. And, Tim, I shouldn't even say alluded. He said straight out, we were going to dig into what people thought about living in rural Ontario, living in suburban Ontario, living in downtown, high-density urban centers. And I would say one of the more striking findings in this particular study that we did for the Ontario Real Estate Association is that, you can see that 6 out of every 10 Ontarians who are active in the real estate market agreed or somewhat agreed with the statement that it was more appealing to live either in suburban Ontario or in rural Ontario. And those are big numbers that pop right now. The other thing is when we think of the downtown, and the downtowns in many places have been kind of the epicenters where Ontarians and the Ontario government have been fighting the pandemic, you can see the level of appeal when it comes to living in a downtown high-density urban area right now is not as strong as the suburban and rural. And, maybe who knows, maybe it'll be like retro hour back in the 1970s under Premier Bill Davis, right? Where, suburban Ontario and small community Ontario as kind of like the backbone and people looking at that. The big question is this short term? Is this long term? We won't know now, but we will be monitoring this and we'll be able to get back to you probably in the fall with some new numbers to see whether the appetite for living in suburban Ontario and in rural Ontario is still much more appealing than it has been in the past. And the other thing is when we look at this whole interplay between suburban, urban, and downtown, you can see that a significant number of people disagree on the downtown number, 20 and 55% outright. Actually, the suburban and urban numbers are fairly consistent right across the board in terms of the positive draw and impressions, but the views on downtown, definitely an outlier at this particular point in time. And, when we look at the rural stuff, the other thing is maybe this shouldn't be a big surprise. If you're living in downtown Toronto and you're actively in the real estate market, you're probably less likely to agree that rural area is appealing. But look at those demographic numbers when we look at the age breakdown. You can see that for millennials, those are under 34 years of age, the appeal is still positive in terms of a majority of millennials. But check out those numbers. Seniors, people that are over the age of 55 who are active in the market, more likely to have look at rural areas as appealing. Might speak to the type of customer that's looking at rural areas as an alternative to where they are right now. And when we think about appeal to living in a downtown setting, you can see that the highest number of disagreement with that is in Toronto. What does this mean? Folks that are living in downtown Toronto like living in downtown Toronto, and they probably want to continue to live in downtown Toronto. But the negative views aren't really as are basically not as strong related to downtown living for those that are in that setting. Perhaps one of the key takeaways here is there's a disconnect between reality and perceptions. If people are in downtown Toronto, they know that it's okay. but we're people that are not necessarily living in downtown Toronto and living in other parts of the province. Perhaps there's a perception, whether true or false, that there's just a little less or a little more anxiety on that front. And, on the suburban front, what's interesting is significant level of appeal if you're in the GTA. Even when you look at millennials, we think of millennials wanting that downtown lifestyle. Well, check out the age categories when it comes to appeal to living in the suburbs, where you can see that people that are under 34 years of age actually score higher in terms of appeal to suburbs compared to those that are over 55 years of age. So some interesting dynamics on that front. Tim talked about when is it a good time to list a home for sale, and also we unpacked to buy a home. And I guess we should probably say that it depends. The key number that jumped out here was the proportion that are unsure. You can see on this part of the transaction, 50% pretty well, or 1 out of every 2 people who are actively in the market were unsure. What does this mean for realtors? That means realtors, people are going to be looking to you to tell them and to give them advice on what they should be doing on the buy and sell front. That a significant portion of the market doesn't really have a firm opinion. And you can see that people are probably projecting next year probably being a good time. But right now, there's still a significant proportion that are up for grabs. Still a similar number when it comes to buying a home. But 4 out of every 10 are unsure. And this speaks to the important role that realtors will have to play in giving advice and guiding their clients through the next number of months in the pandemic in terms of the sequencing and timing of when it's a good time to buy or sell. And, we can't get through this without talking about masks, social distancing, all that kind of stuff, because we know that Ontarians are dealing with this in every single part of their lives, when they go to the grocery store, when they visit their local shops, and eventually when they'll be going back to school and work. And one of the numbers that really popped for me was the proportion of Ontarians that are active in the market that were comfortable or somewhat comfortable in attending an in-person private viewing. Check out that number, 84%. That's basically everyone, statistically pretty well. Significant level of comfort, still very strong comfort. 66%, or 2 out of every 3, were comfortable or somewhat comfortable in attending an open house with other buyers. So still a majority, but not as strong as what I'll say the private viewing. But what we have to remember is that when we look at these numbers are conditional on realtors making sure that the proper safety precautions are in place. And we worked on a list in conjunction with the Ontario Real Estate Association of a great big long list of things that could be done as part of the preparation from a health perspective and precautions. And what we want people to remember, here are the top 5. Frequently cleaning and disinfecting, limiting the number of visitors per showing, wearing protective equipment, spacing out showings, and offering virtual tours. So think of those as the questions that your clients will be asking you when they're getting ready to go to that open house or that private showing. They're going to say, hey, give me an explanation of what's going to happen. Is this place, properly disinfected? How many other people will be there? Who's wearing what? I guess that sounds like maybe a different podcast, but I'm talking about who's wearing what when it comes to protective equipment, and how will it work, and the important role that realtors will have to play in not just making sure that these things are done, but in also in explaining to their clients what will happen in order for them to feel comfortable with the showings that they do want to have. And the key takeaway on the protective front is that there are probably 2 tiers, the ones that we just mentioned. The other thing that's interesting is that about 1 out of every 20 say, I'm not concerned. It's kind of like, I don't care, I'm good. And don't feel strongly about any of these things. And about just as many, about 7%, said that they're not comfortable. What does this mean? Basically, 95% are comfortable to one extent or another, conditional on the right environment being in place. So not a lot of obstacles there. The key takeaway, not a lot of obstacles, assuming that everyone does their job in creating a safe environment for their clients. And, the thing is, maybe it shouldn't be much of a big surprise, but when it comes to attending in-person open houses, check out those millennials. Much more, you can see almost 20 percentage points more likely to be comfortable or somewhat comfortable in going to an in-person open house compared to older clients. And when it comes to the in-person private showings, no big difference from an age perspective. On that front, you can see it's more than 8 out of every 10. Doesn't matter whether you're young, middle-aged, or old. So 3 key takeaways from the study, and then we'll pass it over to the group. First of all, right now, there seems to be a little more interest in terms of suburban and rural compared to the past. Second of all, there's a significant level of openness for showings, especially private showings, but also for showings that include an open house with other buyers, assuming that the conditions are met to keep things safe. And the other key takeaway is realtors, think of your role not only in giving advice, because people are looking at advice in terms of how to buy and sell, when to buy and sell, and how that should move forward, but also ensuring that it's a safe environment for people to be able to buy the homes that they want or sell the homes that they have to sell. And with that, Tim, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks very much, Nick. That was fantastic. Really appreciate the overview. A ton of meat there. And again, for the over 500 people watching live right now, thanks for joining us. Please do put into chat any questions that you have. I'll try to get to as many questions as possible for our expert panel. We did have one earlier I can answer right now. Yes, we will be posting Nick's slides and the full information on our areacovid19info.com, or again, areacovid19info.com website. We'll put this on social media as well. So let your friends know they can watch the rebroadcast. You got it live. So because you're live, you can ask us questions. Please put that into chat. Okay, before I go to our panel, Sean Morrison, of course, the broker manager, Coldwell Banker Momentum Realty, and the president of the Ontario Real Estate Association, Melanie Piche, the broker owner with the Brell team out of the Junction in Toronto, also Prince Edward County, joining us for the expert panel. First question, though, to you, Nick, from Nik Nanos. Nanos by the numbers. A lot of meat to get through. So let me start with one that's renters. So it looks like my main question at the beginning, how has the pressure of COVID and being cooped up impacted consumer behavior? A big one definitely on the renter side. So what are you seeing there?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the thing is that for renters, you think of folks that, the conditions. And right now, people are now looking at places that they live as also now places as they work and places where they spend, I'm not even going to say extra time, more time. And what it suggests is that this has put a significant level of pressure on renters. You know, when we ask respondents what they want in a new space, it's things like a space to work, a backyard, and that kind of thing. And, when you think about it, for a market, that might explain why there's a significant level of appeal right now for suburban properties and also properties in rural areas, because more people are teleworking. So think of renters as that part of the market that's probably most under personal pressure because they don't own a home, might not have the amount of space that they'd like to in order to work from home.
Okay, Sean Morrison, when you saw this number on the renters, did it surprise you? And do you think there's a particular type of renters who are more likely to be looking to move than others, or kind of across the board?
No, it didn't surprise me that much. I mean, certainly in our area, that's a trend that we're seeing as well. I think those first-time buyers that are renting currently and want to get into home ownership, I think this number actually shows that Canadian dream of home ownership is still alive. So those first-time buyers are certainly looking to move into space, and I think that is also affecting from COVID what they're looking for in that space. Being in a suburb area of Toronto as my primary place of business, that's what we're starting to see in the transfers, that they are looking for that backyard space. They are looking for maybe that finishable basement or finished basement so that they can have some office space should they have to work at home. So not a big surprise to me here, Tim.
And Melanie, when you look at your business for the Brell team, whether than City of Toronto or Prince Edward County, anything in here that you disagree with?
No, definitely wasn't surprised. I mean, I think if we look at any past economic downturn or pause of the market, I mean, it's always the first-time buyers that lead the recovery. So we weren't surprised to see them first in line. I think also in times of uncertainty, it's hard to upgrade because you might be buying and selling in different markets. And that's one of the things our upgraders are struggling with the most. mean, right now we have an incredibly hot market in Toronto. But everyone's biggest fear is they buy in that and they go to sell next month and the market has changed. So I wasn't surprised to see that happening in June at all. July, we noticed a significant change in the number of first-time buyers that were looking to buy. And I think that corresponded with a significant decline in rents in Toronto. It's going to be really interesting to see how that changes or if it changes in July, but wasn't surprised to see it for June at all.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, joining us in the consumer perceptions of the real estate market. How is COVID-19 impacting buyers and sellers out there? Please do send any questions you have through the chat window. I'll get to many as I can. I'm going to focus on a few more of the big findings in Nik's report. Nik, the big debate we're all having is this me and the big flight from the cities? People are going to say, oh my God, I can't stand COVID or the next pandemic. I got to get out of Toronto or Ottawa to the countryside, move to the suburbs, or is that all just speculation?
Well, why don't we just say that people are entertaining it? The first step is for people to be open to living in the burbs and in small town Ontario. And, the thing is from a lot of the other research that we've done, it's kind of like we found that people want a simpler life, their greater appreciation for family and loved ones and friends. And I think this period of self-isolation for a lot of people are thinking, where am I living? What kind of place do I want to live in? What type of communities? So whether this manifests, I don't think this is going to manifest itself into an exodus out into the burbs and rural Ontario. But what this means is that they're now on the agenda. And I think for realtors, probably the key takeaway here is that realtors that can provide that experience that bridges downtown, suburban, rural, and through their colleagues and through their own networks are probably going to be at an advantage, because I'm not sure there are going to be as many people moving like 2 blocks to the left, because they're going to say, maybe I will move 2 blocks to the left, but how about the burbs or how about small town Ontario? So I think strategically, realtors have to be thinking about how they are agile and flexible enough to meet this new potential dynamic, which if it manifests itself, who knows?
All right. Well, Melanie, you're a bit like me. I was raised in a small town. I split my time out between Toronto and Niagara. You're splitting your time between Toronto and Prince Edward County. We could argue about who has better wine, which of those counties does. But more importantly, are you buying this? So to me, like, city people are city people, country people are country people.
I mean, I think you're right. I mean, true urban Toronto people, like downtown people, are always going to be downtown people. I mean, the pandemic we've continuously referred to as the great accelerator, in that everything is sped up 5 or 10 years. So whether that's technology or virtual meetings or electronic signatures, pandemic meant everything moved so much forward. And I think we're seeing the same thing with consumers' real estate choices. So we're seeing people that had been talking about moving to the county or moving to the country or moving to the suburbs in 5 or 10 years, or downsizing to a condo in Toronto in 5 or 10 years, that are now doing it as opposed to waiting. So we're seeing a lot of those lifestyle choices happening sooner rather than later. But I don't think it's a new trend. I mean, we've seen it with millennials. Our brokerage last year started a whole program on our website to connect people with smaller communities, because we saw that trend last year. Now it's accelerated because more people are working from home and lifestyle is more important. But, I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus from the city, but I think people will make faster lifestyle choices than they might have made if it wasn't for, this new way of living that we've all gone through.
All right, Sean, you're the tiebreaker. Some big numbers here in terms of rural living becoming more popular. Suburban, you do a lot of work in suburban areas, becoming more popular. Cities, not so much. Melanie says, now it's just an acceleration of an existing trend. It's not a permanent shift. You got to break the tie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to break the tie by going right down the middle. I think that certainly, as Melanie has said, it's not a new trend. We have been seeing an exodus out of urban centers into more rural or suburb style communities because of an affordability crisis that we're having. We're seeing people move out that way because they get more bang for their buck. What I'm seeing now due to COVID is people not necessarily moving because they get more bang for their buck in the suburbs, but moving to a community that they feel more comfortable in or that they have different amenity in. So I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. I do think that this has definitely accelerated people's plans and moving out. But I think that as Nik has put forward, a lot of people are considering the suburbs that may not have considered it pre-COVID.
Okay. So Nik, I'm going to go back to you to do what we call the crosstabs. So in politics, I always enjoy the crosstabs. You and I worked together then too. in terms of how certain sets of people feel about the big issue. So you see the big number, that 60%, like rural areas more attractive, 61% suburbs, and was it 34% like urban areas. But when you dive down into the numbers, do you see any particular trends? Like, is it age categories or where they currently living that's driving these numbers, or is it pretty much the same across the board?
Actually, there are different categories or subgroups. Some of the things that really I thought were quite interesting is that when we look at millennial homeowners, right? So these are millennials who own a home. Statistically, they're much more likely to say they want to buy a second property, right? Which means that millennials might be that sweet spot that is looking to bridge, I need some home space that I can work in and stuff like that. But I'm much more open to a second property. And the other thing that I thought was quite interesting is that on this virtual front, and one of the things that we saw in terms of the precautions, I think number 5 on the list was that virtual offering. That at the top of the list, that segment that wanted the virtual offering were millennials, and a higher level of comfort in doing a big part of the transaction or kind of the vetting process online. And this speaks to the importance of realtors again, because it's pretty clear that although people are comfortable virtually going through a lot of the experience, they're still going to need a realtor at some point in order to close the deal and to make sure that everything's okay. But that millennials, when you think of the future of the market, because millennials they will age, and they will become more and more important over time. And they're also significantly important now. But thinking of the future, think of millennials and think of the mix between kind of the face-to-face interactions and the virtual interactions. And maybe I'll close with one last comment. Sure. Like we go to stores now, there's no browsing. It sounds like a Seinfeld episode. No browsing in the store. Go in the store and buy what you want to buy. It could be like that, and this could be like this for realtors, where they're just going to be fewer browsers, right? Fewer people that might not be as interesting, and that browsing is going to take place online. And when we get to those open houses and those private showings, those personal interactions, you're going to be dealing with people who are much more interested and basically qualified buyers. So
all right. So Melanie, no browsing for you as the show would go. But you wanted one last comment, and then I'm going to ask you, Melanie, I'll give you last comment on this. I want to switch also to how people are changing the type of home they're looking at. So why don't you close off this part of the debate?
Sure. I think millennials are the ones to watch. They've always cared more about lifestyle. Pre-real estate, I was in HR, and our millennials were the people who had yoga at 5 o'clock in the ad industry, where the rest of us work till 11 p.m. So millennials are, not like the Gen Xers on this call, and they've always cared about lifestyle first. So it shouldn't be a surprise. They are also working in industries like Shopify and Facebook and Google that are embracing permanent work from home. And I think that's going to be part of that shift to suburbia or to the country, because they can do their job from anywhere. We need to solve the internet problem that we have in Ontario, in rural communities. That's a big one. But once we do that, I think that's going to be the really interesting flow of watching people go, because they don't have to live in Toronto to work for a Toronto company now, right? They can work for a company in Paris. They can work for a company in London. They can work for a company in San Francisco. If they're working from home, it doesn't matter. And that means they can live wherever they want. And millennials are going to love that, because that's always what they've been. Millennials have always embraced living. And us Gen Xers are learning to do that during the pandemic, but that's always what they've been about. And I think when it comes just to kind of bring in the point you're making about what people are looking at that's different, sure. They're also valuing things like backyards. They're valuing space. Those are things you can't always get in a condo. They're valuing privacy. They're valuing security. They're valuing pools. It's a big mindset shift in terms of what they're looking for. Work from home space, Wi-Fi. The things that we didn't really pay a lot of attention to, but anyone in smaller communities, if you're trying to attract someone from Toronto as a buyer, you need to talk about the Wi-Fi, because that's what the person working from home needs.
We will be back after this short break.
Join the AREA Realtor research community to have your say when it comes to the services AREA provides, the recommendations we make to the government, and the strategic priorities of the association. You'll receive exclusive content and be entered into monthly draws every time you complete a survey. Visit joinarearesearch.com to sign up and join an exclusive community of realtors making a difference. joinarearesearch.com.
So really like working through topic 3 here. So number 1, that we saw a significant increase in renters who are looking to get into the home ownership as a result of COVID. That's coming through the data, 2 months running now. The other one was a shift in preferences towards suburban and rural. The other major one, Sean Morrison, is with respect to the types of homes. Melanie talked a bit about that. So this we saw in the May data, and we saw it now through the end of June, that 1 in 4 buyers who were in the market before COVID, now sort of during and post, are looking to get more space. So as a realtor and broker, how do you have these numbers that impact on your approach to business?
Well, I mean, certainly you have to have the conversation like most realtors will at the beginning about qualifying what your client actually wants in a home. What we're seeing now is that trend has changed. So, for instance, backyard space has become vitally important to people. So as they're going through, how livable is the backyard? As Melanie put earlier, pools, those have become more popular around our areas. We're not going on vacation right now. So people are really prioritizing sitting poolside this summer versus, traveling. So I think like anything, we're going to see some shifts in the trends of what people are looking for in their homes. We're seeing that, more and more people have spent a lot of time in their homes recently, so they know what they like and what they don't like about them, and what they're looking for in their next home might have changed. So bigger spaces, better outdoor space, and good walkable proximity to things has become really important in our area.
All right, Nick, when you sift through the crosstabs, the numbers within the numbers, when it comes to that 1 in 4 that are looking for a change, their tastes have changed as a result of COVID in their home. What pops out at you as the biggest part of that trend?
Well, the biggest part of the trend is more. Can I just say more? Everybody wants more. Actually, only 5.9% of, when we ask, renters and homeowners that are actively in the real estate market right now and who said that their views have changed, only 5.9% said less. So maybe, okay, realtors that are on this call, drill this 4-letter word, like the right 4-letter word, more, into your head, because that's what they want to hear. How is there more space? How is there more outdoor space? How is the more fit into having a home office, and to think of people wanting more of everything right now, because you know what? People's homes and where they live is now a multi-purpose space. It's not just a place to sleep, perhaps eat every once in a while, and then to be in another place. It is now a multi-purpose place, and because it's a multi-purpose place, there needs to be more there in terms of, outdoor space and indoor space and just space in general. And I think that's one of the key takeaways. And, the thing is you think of the market where some builders have been focusing on smaller spaces. Well, you know what? It's going to be a tough slog for the next while if you're offering really small space for certain parts of the market, because they're going to be looking at, can I work there? And if you can't say yes to that, you're going to be at a disadvantage in terms of, there'll still be people. Melanie, it's a disadvantage.
Melanie, let's swing back to you on that one, on the condo side then, right? So yeah, I'm happy. I've got some space here in Niagara. I got a pool in the backyard, John. So you said that's going to be good for my property value. Melanie, what about the condo side? What's happening as a result of this?
I mean, the condo side was really strong in June. We're certainly seeing some changes in July. I don't know if that's temporary or not. People who embrace condo life are doing it because they want the ease, right, of easy living. Honestly, I'm selling my house in Toronto and buying a condo because I don't want to deal with maintaining a house. So I think there are a lot of people who fall into that category. So I don't think that we're going to see, the end of the condo market at all. It's a different lifestyle. I think a lot of what we can do when we're selling condos is we can't add a backyard to a condo, but we can certainly stage that second bedroom as an office. We can certainly focus on the shared terrace, the shared common space, and really highlight those features. We've changed so much of our staging and marketing to deal with some of these new wants and needs that we're seeing in the market. I mean, pre-pandemic, if our stagers had changed a 3-bedroom house and staged the third bedroom as an office, I would have lost my mind. Now it's all about get rid of that third bedroom, put in an office. So I think as realtors, we can help people envision what life can be there with our staging, with the marketing, with the words that we use. So I don't think it's the end of the condo market at all. I think it's just how we position it. And it's a different market, but it always was. right? The
Okay.
person who wants the house with the pool isn't the person who's happy in a condo, unless they have both.
So Nick is showing his Generation X fruits by quoting both Seinfeld and then Billy Idol with more, more, more. So on the more theme, again, I'll start with Melanie and go to Sean right after. So then it's definitely going to be a seller's market, right? You've got people wanting more. They're looking to move around, limited inventory in the marketplace. So Melanie, what's your advice to buyers trying to cope in this type of marketplace?
I mean, it's really hard right now. I mean, we've got an inventory problem, we have an affordability problem, and we have uncertainty, which is the big thing that is on everybody's mind. What's going to happen, right? Our price is going to go down. Our price is going to go up. Is now my opportunity to get in? I mean, that's the big concern. And I think as realtors, we've never been more important because we can help people define what they want for their lives. And I don't think this is, the best time to sell or the best time to buy. This is the best time to do what's right for you and your life and your family. And I think as realtors, that's our job, is to look at timelines, to look at what's important and really drill that down and do all the marital counseling and family sessions that entails to get to what we want life to look at. But I think that's really what we can do to kind of help people get through that. None of us should be making any predictions right now. We have no idea what's going to happen either. But we can help people figure out what they want and how a path to make it happen. And honestly, that's sort of how we're handling it with our clients. We don't have any magic answers, but we can help them figure out what they want.
Well, you don't have to make predictions. You can simply tune into AREA's Consumer Perceptions of the Marketplace. We'll be doing monthly polling, folks, so stay tuned. And Sean had Nick on his podcast last month, and we'll come back to you in a month or so with new data. Okay, Sean Morrison, your capacity as both president of AREA and more so as broker manager with Coldwell Banker Momentum Realty. I mean, the flip side of that is there's a lot of people in this marketplace, according to Nick's numbers, that are sitting on the sidelines, a lot of potential inventory that say, what was it, 9.5 months or something, Nick, I think it said, is what they say is an ideal time to come to the marketplace. Some say 12 months. So how do you, on a business side, approach clients then to try to get more supply in the marketplace?
Well, I think part of that is increasing consumer confidence. What we're seeing right now is that the buyers are ready to return to the market, but the sellers are still hesitant about having people coming into their home. So when people contact you about whether or not they should list their property, I think, as Melanie said, communication is the key. You need to have those conversations with your client. You need to put that advisor hat on as part of your real estate professional role and help guide them through that process. Show them what we do to keep properties and their families safe during this COVID pandemic, and why they can come to market, still have a good experience with their real estate professional, and know that their family and their clients are safe.
A lot of uncertainty there in the marketplace, Nik Nanos. I mean, you can open up a restaurant, doesn't mean anybody's going to come by. You can open up Marineland here in Niagara, will anybody show up? So, what's your take when you see so many people who look like they're hesitating right now?
Well, the other thing in the study that, the beauty behind a tracking study, we can track the change over time. So here's a number for everyone to chew on. Back in May, when we did the benchmark survey, when we asked how much prices would either increase or decrease, in May, about 34% said that the prices would increase either a lot or to some extent. Fast forward just 1 month later, and that 34% in terms of increase has jumped to 51%. So, these numbers are going to move as the market moves. And you have to think of, this level of comfort. The level of comfort is going to be directly conditioned by the province of Ontario and how it opens up the province. So if we keep moving in a particular direction, more people will be comfortable, right? And the other thing that we know from the survey data is that there's an increasing number of people that believe that the prices will increase. And that will put pressure on those other numbers in terms of when it's a good time to buy and sell. So, in a way, that's a bit of a leading indicator, but it suggests at least over the last 30 days, people are becoming a little more bullish in terms of prices rising. And I expect with that and the opening of the economy over time, that we might be able to get back to a normal within a certain period. It might not be as long as some people might fear.
All right. So I want to get to my last topic, and that's around giving consumer confidence when they're coming into a home. But I'm going to throw the wild card question first. And again, to the 500 plus folks who are watching right now at home, please do put your questions in the chat. We are getting a ton of questions, by the way. I'll try to get through as many as I can. But if you want a question of Melanie, Nick, or Sean, please do put it in chat. We'll get to that after the final topic in a moment. And again, this will be posted as well on the AREA COVID-19info.com website and broadcast as well for those who missed it here today. But you've got that opportunity. Ask your question. I'll try to get it through. Enough of the preamble, Tim. Okay, here's a wild card question. My mind always goes here. We got a problem. We got a lack of inventory. If you've got a lot of buyers in the marketplace, that could create a new affordability crisis, higher prices, fewer homes. So my hat says, okay, what can government do? So open question to Nik, Sean, Melanie. What would your advice be to Premier Ford as comes from provincial level to try to get more supply in the marketplace?
Well, honestly, Tim, I think that we had a supply and demand issue coming into COVID-19, and this pandemic has done nothing but exacerbate that even further. I think, moving along and getting approvals done quicker, bringing more product to market would be good. But in that environment where we're trying to get the first-time buyers into the market so that they can then release that move-up buyer to go and upsize, or the downsizer to come down and keep the market going, I think we need to look at things like a land transfer tax rebate, for instance. That would make things a little bit more affordable for that first-time buyer to get into that market. And that will, in turn, release some stock into the marketplace for those move-up buyers. For those that want to stay home and don't want to move, I think something like a home energy plan would be a really good thing, as a rebate plan for them to do major renovations. We know that the real estate sector has a lot of influence in the marketplace when it comes to the economy. Something like, $75,000, I think was the figure. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that was the one I saw in the study. Spins out from every real estate transaction in things like, ancillary services, going to Home Depot to pick up your supplies to paint your house and that sort of thing, and hiring of other professionals. So I think those would be three really good places to start to kind of spur the real estate sector to help pull with it the economy as we come out of COVID-19.
Well, Melanie Piche is broker owner of the Brell team. And when you do work in Toronto, your clients get killed by that double land transfer tax. So Sean Morrison's suggestion of a land transfer tax holiday, would that bring some more supply in the market?
I mean, helping first-time buyers is something we need to do, right? We've got an affordability problem in Toronto, and we help first-time buyers. We also help the people who are upgrading and selling, because they're selling to first-time buyers, right? So I think it does automatically help that market, because if you've got, like we've got right now, where that first-time buyer condo market is pretty flat, it's not going to be very long before that starts hurting our upgraders. Ooh, that means they're not going to list their houses for sale because nobody's buying them. So it's kind of a vicious circle. So I also would love to see more help for first-time buyers. I thought all Sean's ideas were excellent.
So Nik Nanos, as President Nanos, how about we put those ideas on our next poll when we do the July, August? See
Absolutely.
What for the motivated behavior. Okay, Nik, I want to go to you. My last question. We got a whack of questions from viewers right now. So that's around the health and safety. I always wonder if pollsters, when they write the questions, if they've got a gut instinct of what the answers are going to be, and if they're ever surprised. So when you looked at the stuff around open houses or around health and safety measures, did Nanos predict it, or were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised on the comfort level with having the open houses, because you know what? If you read the news, it's like biblical pestilence out there, where we're reporting every day the number of cases. But the fact of the matter is, if realtors create a safe environment, buyers and sellers will be good with that. So it's just basically that. So how about this? Disregard the nervous Nellies on the news and focus on what's important. Make sure those conditions for a safe experience are there, and people will be comfortable, because people want to kind of be in the market. They want, housing has to be affordable and accessible, and no pandemic's going to stop that. Right? But realtors can be a real enabler to making sure that experience is as positive as possible.
Sean, you took a very strong stand out of the gate as president of AREA to have a very high bar when it comes to health and safety. You ask realtors to put aside personal interests to benefit the community and postpone business until things settle down. So are you feeling good about that? Anything else we need to keep in mind in the time ahead?
Yeah, I'm feeling great about that. I mean, I want to thank Ontario Realtors for the amazing, diligent job they did of keeping their community safe. Right out of the gate, before it was even banned by the province, our members were stopping open houses, moving digitally, and keeping that health and safety in mind. I think going forward, we need to realize we're still in a pandemic, although we are coming out of the pandemic stage by stage and phase by phase. I think we need to, stay diligent on keeping digital tools whenever possible. As Nik said earlier, kind of go through that qualification process digitally. When you want to go and see property, move that into private showings whenever possible, and only use open houses as a last resort. I think while the consumer is ready for the open house, I'm not sure the sellers are. It used to be the question was, are we going to have open houses involved in the sale of my home? And now that's shifted when I'm talking with sellers to, we're not going to have open houses, are we? So that has really been a shift from the seller side, because people are going to be coming through their home and they want to make sure that they're qualified and screened before coming in. So if we are going to that last resort of an open house, I would suggest that we do have some guidance on that on our areacovid19info.com site. I would advise, just going through those precautionary measures, as Nik had said, to make sure that consumer confidence is there and that they feel that they can show that safely.
Melanie Piche, you were a very strong leader on your Facebook group, Toronto Real Estate 2.0, as well as your well-read blog on making sure that high standards are set around health and safety. You had called for open houses to be shut down during the pandemic. Is there anything when you look at Nik's numbers there that may be missing, or is there something that you're using with your clients to give them the assurance that their home is going to be kept safe and they'll have a good experience in viewing a home?
The open house number was actually the most shocking part of the survey to me. I was surprised that many buyers were ready for it. From when we're representing sellers, our goal is to get them out of the house during showings. We've actually converted one of our offices into an apartment where we move clients into while we show their property for sale. So we take it very seriously. I think it's interesting. I think if you asked realtors how many of them want open houses to come back, it would not be 6%. It would not be. But what's interesting is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm about to be a seller. And I will be honest, 2 weeks ago when we were waiting for kind of what phase 3 was going to include, as a seller, I was like, oh, I hope open houses are back, because I know I want to get a lot of people in here. So that was really interesting. Now, I'm not living in that house, so I think that makes a difference. But I think we're going to really need to figure out what alternatives we have and really understand what our clients' expectations are and what our alternatives are. I know our team is looking at, we've always been pretty virtual, and we've done well through the pandemic, but we know there will be sellers like me who are going to be like, well, what about the open house? So what we're going to be doing is moving to, in those situations where we think it makes sense and people aren't living there, et cetera, there'll be by appointment only open houses, which will be treated like a realtor.ca lead, where we are pre-screening and qualifying in advance and we're not having multiple people in there. But we need to figure that out, because I know realtors don't want to do them. I'm shocked that buyers want to go to them. And I think our sellers are going to expect them. So we really need to figure that out.
Again, folks watching at home, if you have a question for Nik Nanos, Melanie Piche, Sean Morrison, please do put it. If you want it for all of them, say that. If you want it for one of them individually, I'm happy to do that as well. We've got a bunch, but I can still get more in. So Nik, Melanie, Sean, we're going to proceed with the questions. And the first one I'm going to give to you, Melanie. You're working a lot in this area. It's Mike Horwath, and Mike asks about renters. He says, do you think the renters' appetite for purchasing is because there's a COVID discount on sales?
I think that's their expectation. I think that the buyers, is certainly in Toronto, are hoping that prices have gone down and this is their opportunity to come in. I think that's what we saw in June. And I think what we're seeing right now is that usual stalemate that we have, where who's going to blink first, right? Are the sellers going to lower their prices? Or the first time buyer is going to be like, oh, prices aren't going down. I've got to get in now before they go back up. So I think we're back at that point. It is interesting with rents going down so much, right? It's not always cheaper to own now than to rent. Because rents have come down a lot, and tenants have been negotiating rents with their current landlords, which was unexpected. So, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I'm actually really looking forward to the July numbers about the renters.
Okay. And again, we will be putting out numbers on a monthly basis as we go through the now hopefully regrowth stage, getting back on path. So look for future Nanos numbers hosted by Sean Morrison and Nik Nanos in the future. And Melanie as a panelist. Okay, Sean, the next question is going to give to you. This was Lisa McGill. And Lisa asks, do you think the increased interest in rural and suburban is a lifestyle choice, or is it just price driven?
Well, that's a good question, Lisa. I think it could be a lifestyle choice for sure. What I see from buyers now is that they're starting to look for additional space than they have currently. They're more willing to drive a little bit further to work if that means that their home environment is good. That could be because we're telecommuting certain parts of the week. It's always been driven by price previously. We have had a bit of an affordability crisis in Ontario, and certainly you have that drive till you qualify. So you just keep going further and further out until you get what you want for the money you can pay. But I think that it's been accelerated through this and the lifestyle choices that are available now that we've spent a lot of time in our homes. We really know what we want in a house. I know for me, I don't think I've ever spent this much time in my backyard. So I think that's important to people, is having that backyard space. And as a result, to afford that extra space, you've got to move a little bit further out. So I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B here.
All right, Nick, when you look through your columns A, B, and C and otherwise, do you think this is a lifestyle choice, or do you think it's just, hey, I can get a cheaper place and I can work from home?
It's both, but I would hazard to say that it's different depending on who it is. That it's probably, for the first time in younger millennials, it's a price choice, but that if you're middle-aged and older, it could be a lifestyle choice where you probably want to be in a lower density neighborhood from a lifestyle perspective. So Sean is absolutely right. It's a mixture of both. But I think when we're looking at the type of customer that you have, one, it kind of be kind of like Donnie and Marie, kind of a little bit country, a little bit of rock and roll. One might be a little more country, one would put a little bit of rock and roll. And there might be just both of those things at play, but one of those, either price or lifestyle, being predominant as one of the drivers, depending on the generation that you're part of.
Now, what color are Donny Osmond's socks?
Oh, man. Well, I never looked at his socks.
Oh, come on. You're nailing the pop culture stuff. Purple is favorite color. My sister had a Donny Osmond poster right there on her front door, which does put it in the Gen X category. Okay, Melanie, Peggy Hill asks this question. She says, does the trend to moving out of the city have a direct correlation with the job market and everyone working from home?
I think it's definitely part of it. I think as Sean and Nick were talking about, there's an affordability piece to it for sure. I look at my house in Toronto, which is worth 3 times my house in Prince Edward County, and my pool cabana here is the same size as my house in Toronto. Right? So there's an affordability thing. It literally is the same footprint. There's an affordability piece there, and then there's a lifestyle piece to it. And certainly we've been running our brokerage from Prince Edward County for the last 4 months, literally without a hiccup. And as more and more people get comfortable with that, I think there will be a direct link. We work a lot with technology and communications clients. That's the bulk of our clients. And we often will be like, okay, let's look in Toronto and let's look somewhere else. And we partner up with another local realtor somewhere. And it's amazing to kind of see what they decide to do. And the pandemic certainly sped that up, because now they didn't have to worry about commuting. They didn't have to be 1 hour from Toronto. So I think it's going to have a huge impact on it. And as we see what happens in the commercial space and the companies that, walk away from their leases or decide to work from home is the way to be, I think we're going to see that trend increase.
And Sean, on a similar note, Michael D. Pasquale sends in a question. He says, what about what the CEO of Brookfield is saying? He's saying that offices are leasing up more space to bring people back but remain distant. Is working from home an overestimation and a fad? Or do you actually think it's a long-term trend?
Well, I think, again, I'm gonna answer that with a column A and column B scenario. Is some places you can't telework. You need to have them in building, and you need to have those workers return to the office. So in that scenario, what we're seeing is that exactly that. They're leasing up a little bit more space. They're making sure that people can remain socially distanced, prepping the workspace for a pandemic type scenario to keep people, properly distanced apart and safe. For other companies, tech companies, for instance, I think Melanie mentioned Google earlier, is looking at a permanent work from home scenario. So realistically, I think that you're going to see both in the environment. I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus and empty office buildings all over Toronto. But at the same point, I think that those that can work from home are opting to do so. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out long term. We've had a ton of questions here. Melanie, I'll throw this in because I think it's related.
a whack of them around the CMHC's prediction that prices could fall as much as 18%. Is that fiction? Do you think that actually could happen related to this trend? Go ahead.
We can make up 1,000 different predictions. I don't think anything means anything unless somebody was around in 1918 in the last pandemic and can predict that things are going to go the exact same way. I don't know that I don't have a lot of faith in any of those predictions, because it really is all about what's going on in the consumer's mind, right? And right now that's impossible to predict. So I'm sure Nick's going to disagree with me on that.
Well, let's see.
And
Nick,
it could lead the way. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Nick, what do you think?
I'm not going to disagree. Actually, I remember looking at stats. So this is how pathetic I am. I remember looking at stats on housing prices in the Depression, because this was one of the questions that I had, is kind of like, so was like real estate obliterated during the Depression? Because we hear about, tumbleweeds and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being quite surprised. I think the price of real estate, at least the stat that I saw in the United States, of homes, actually only went down about 10 or 12% in the Depression. And just think, that's the benchmark of badness, why don't we say, when it comes to real estate. So now, will there be variations in different markets? Absolutely. But the thing is, we see variations now in the price of homes, positive and negative, and they're very market dependent. So, I'm just thinking 18% sounds high. There could always be an instance of an outlier, but looking at the historical trend for real estate in the last 80 years, if it ever got to 18%, it would be an outlier based on the historical trend.
All right, I'm going to do this question, and I'll remind folks, we have about 5 minutes left, and I am going to have each of our panelists give a 1 minute close and ask you, I'll give you a preview so you can think about it, what's the biggest takeaway for realtors from Nik Nanos' polling. So Nick, this one I'm going to throw to you only, and then we'll go to the wrap-ups. It's Leslie Verspega. Leslie says, will COVID change government urban planning that has been focused on increasing density? Will that change?
Leslie, it should. How about that? Will it? No, but the thing is that, this goes back to what, you, Melanie, and Sean have all said. Our politicians at the provincial and the municipal level, there needs to be someone at the table or someone there that says, does this help or hurt affordability and accessibility to housing? And just ask that simple question, including the paperwork, including taxes, including the planning process. And I would hazard to say that we need to have almost that laser-like focus to just have that simple judgment to ask that question, because what's clear now is that we're at a moment in time where people are looking for something different. And when people start looking for something different, that's when we need our regulations to respond and to be agile, so that housing is affordable and accessible. Because if they don't, there will be a political price to pay if they mess this up.
All right, Sean and Melanie, can I squeeze one more in? It's a tricky one, I'll warn you.
Great.
Well, with that enthusiasm. All right, it's Clay Jarvis from Key Media. I mentioned we have a significant number of media members who are tuning in today. So Clay did ask a question. It's a bit long, so I'll get to the point. He talks about the economic uncertainty. The CMHC is predicting the drop in prices of 18%. No indication of financial disruption caused by the pandemic is anywhere near finished. I think Canada predicts that rates are going to stay low for a good number of years. So he's asking, does pent-up demand really explain what's happening in the marketplace, or is there something else driving buyers? The bottom line, I think, for both of you, I'll start with Sean and then Melanie. Do you feel agents have a responsibility to explain the risk involved in buying right now?
Okay, that's a good question. I see it's got multiple parts. So I'll start off with, is that what's driving this? I think what's driving this is the affordability crisis that we've seen before due to the supply and demand issue. Coming into the marketplace and into COVID, we had a supply and demand imbalance, and I think that's only exacerbated under COVID-19. So realistically, with a lack of supply and increased demand, you're going to see those prices start to increase. And whether or not that's a long-term thing or not remains to be seen. As far as the advisory role of a real estate professional, I mean, we should always be discussing on both sides of the coin with our clients the benefits and the risks involved in buying a house. And when you're dealing with the largest purchase of your life, there's always going to be a risk factor in there. But I think, to your point, Tim, earlier, I think there's a great opportunity here as well for the government to work within this so that we don't see that 18% drop in prices across the board. I think that's very much in their wheelhouse to put to pro homeownership policies on the table that allow those first-time buyers in that real estate sector to keep moving, and as a result, be that economic engine for the recovery.
So Melanie, given all that uncertainty out there, what's the role of the broker and the realtor to the buyer?
Yeah, and I think it's an excellent question, and I think we have a huge responsibility to share all of the sides of the story and not be encouraging people to make the wrong decisions for themselves now more than ever. I mean, something we always should have been doing. When we coach our agents kind of coming through the pandemic of how do we have these conversations with our clients, I went back to my friends in the US who were realtors in 2008. And the pain that they went through, remembering, encouraging people to buy homes, knowing it was all going to crash, and it all crashed. And I've shared those stories, and I've had some of those realtors talk to my staff. I'm like, we never want to be in that situation. That's not what we're about. And I think we have a huge responsibility not to go after the transaction. We need to go after being an important part of somebody's life and helping them make the right decision for them. And it's not the same decision for everybody.
Thank you, Melanie. Wise and thoughtful last words on the question. So now we'll do a wrap up. And again, folks, thank you very much for joining us. I got through a good number of your questions. Thanks for submitting them. Nik, this is your baby, your project. So I'll give you the honor of batting first. What is the biggest takeaway for realtors watching today from your June survey?
So the biggest takeaway is that things are moving in the right direction, but it is a moving target. People in Ontario take what public health authorities say and the Premier of Ontario at face value. So watch that. If things continue to trend in the positive way in terms of fighting the pandemic, expect the level of comfort to increase. But we've seen stuff in the United States where some states have taken a step back. So watch Premier Doug Ford, listen to your public health authorities, and use that to kind of make sure that you can communicate and deliver the experience that your customers need.
Excellent, Nik. Thank you. Melanie Piche, final words. What's the biggest takeaway for realtors and brokers?
I think the thing about the pandemic is it's not out of our control completely, right? We are leaders in our communities. We are leaders in our brokerages, and we have a responsibility to model safe behavior online with our clients, with our families, with our friends, so that we don't make this problem worse and follow in the steps of the US. I think that's where we need to start. Because we do have some control over where this goes next. I think from there, I mean, it's kind of an exciting time to be a realtor. We have a chance to be a really important part of somebody's life. We need to be listening more than ever. We need to be moving digitally and going virtually and doing all the things we should have been doing all of these years anyhow, and really helping people make the right decisions in a safe way. I think it's an exciting time to build referral relationships when we look at some of those numbers about where people are meeting. But I think we need to take our role seriously because people do look to us. And we have that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Melanie Piche. Sean Morrison, you got a lot of hats, a lot of lanes you can take here. Practicing realtor, broker, manager, president of the fourth largest real estate association in North America. You see Nik's numbers. What's the major takeaway?
I think the major takeaway here is that consumer confidence is key. As we move forward, the realtors so far through this pandemic, the over 80,000 of you around the province of Ontario have done an amazing job of keeping that consumer confidence high by, as Melanie had said, putting the transaction second and putting the person first. If we continue to do that, we continue to work with the government from the AREA perspective and keep that interest in real estate strong and that advisory role of the realtor positive and moving forward, then as we come out of this, we're going to see a healthy and strong real estate sector, which will help kickstart the economy. So I guess my final word is thank you to all of the 80,000 real estate professionals in the province of Ontario for doing such a fantastic job and putting your clients first.
Outstanding. All right. So Nik Nanos, president of Nanos Research and a great friend to the real estate community. Melanie Piche is the broker owner of Brell, the Brell team in the Junction in Toronto. Sean Morrison, president of RIA. Thank you very much for sharing your views on this important research and an excellent analysis of those numbers. And to all of you watching at home, thank you very much for tuning into this. If you liked it, we're going to do it again. Monthly rolling polling on consumer perceptions in the real estate market. And also, if you like this show, please do let your friends know about it. We'll be streaming it across social media and through our website in the time ahead. Thanks for your time today, your awesome questions, and have a great day.
Before I go, I want to share a few updates about our We Have Your Back COVID-19 relief plan. AREA is proud to have partnered with LifeWorks by Morneau Chappelle, offering members and their families access to a 24/7 well-being solution. The program provides access to mental health, financial, physical, and social support programs. LifeWorks is available at no cost 24/7, 365 days a year, and can help you and your family deal with a wide range of personal and work issues. For more information or to access the service, please visit www.areacovid19info.com/relief. AREA is also partnering with the Royal Bank of Canada to help support you and your business, both through the current situation and as you take steps necessary to adapt for future success. RBC will be offering financial advice and exclusive webinars specific to AREA members. For more information about RBC support, visit www.areacovid19info.com/relief. And finally, I want to remind you to sign up for our popular Leadership 200 course, Becoming a Leader, which is now available online, free to all members until November 2020. Visit areacovid19info.com/relief to sign up today. From AREA President Sean Morrison and myself, David Bastel, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.
Visit area.com/podcast for more information, links, and a full list of our episodes to date. New episodes are out the second Tuesday of every month.